In this video here, we're going to demonstrate how to clean your grinder. As you use it often, you'll begin to notice that the grinds will come out less and less or slower. This happens from just regular use as well as from using oilier beans. So your very dark roasts, especially espresso roasts, tend to be a bit oily, as you can see with these beans. They have quite a strong sheen. Okay, so the oilier beans, the more likely it is that it's going to retain some of those grinds inside and slow down your grinding process. So the first step will be to remove your hopper. To do so, we're going to rotate it counterclockwise all the way until it clicks with a loud click. That is all the way past the most coarse setting. And here you can see an indicator line that will match up with an unlock and lock symbol here. And it also is here. So unlock position will be all the way to your right at a 90-degree angle. And then once it's locked into place, it'll be about at that angle at the most coarse setting. And your most fine setting will be all the way over on this side. Okay? So one more time. That's locked. And here is unlocked, and you can lift it out. Alright, so once we've unlocked it and removed the hopper, we can dump it out. There we go. And we will now lock it back into place. It's at the most coarse setting. Bring it to a medium to fine setting. And here we're going to install the bellow. This is used to push out any stuck grinds. Alright, so now that's in place between the lid and the hopper. Now what we're going to do is use one of our portafilter baskets, and we're just going to sit that on top of the portafilter holder under the grinder chute. And we're going to turn on the grinder, and while we do that, we're also going to use the bellow to actually push that out. It's going to use airflow to just kind of push things through. So here we go. And you'll see, if you look down, you'll actually see chunks and clumps of those grinds here. You can see that they're actually sticking together quite a bit. And we'll do that a little bit more just to make sure that we got any of those remaining beans out. We want to keep doing this until we don't see any come out for quite some time. There we go. And if you want, you can go to a more fine setting. Oh, there goes a clump. And finally, we'll go to a much more coarse setting. Alright. So I no longer see any coming out. And you can see here, we have quite some clumps that were sticking in there. So now that we've used the bellow and we've ground the remaining beans out, we've got all the loose debris out. Now the next step is to remove the power. So we're going to unplug it, wait a few seconds. It now has no power. We're going to unlock it again. And here inside, we can see that there's no more beans sitting on top. There may be some chunks here, some pieces of beans, some loose grinds. We're just going to sweep them inside. And at this point, we can repeat that last step for just briefly, just to kind of grind out these last parts. If it's clean, if it looks this clean, you can proceed to untwisting the top of the burr. It may be a little stuck depending on how often you clean though. There we go. And that's rotating counterclockwise to remove. And now you can see there's quite a bit caked in here. So all of this should be clean. You shouldn't see this in here. So it's a good time to go ahead and just brush that out. Especially in between the teeth of the burr. So these burr teeth should have clean spaces in between them. You can use soap and water to do this, but if you do that, rinse it really good, and then especially, I must emphasize that it needs to be perfectly, completely dry before returning it. If there's any moisture in this, it'll begin clumping again much faster. You know, any moisture is going to hold onto those grinds and just begin a big mess of clumping up. So if you do use water, make sure it's completely dry before you return it. You can actually see that there's some caked in right here, just right there. It might take a little elbow grease to rub some of that off. So that's how it should look. It should be nice and polished metal there. So it looks pretty good now. We can come back with our brush and push this all back inside. And then go deeper and push it down the next step off of this next lower ledge. And once you've got that all done, you can now return your hopper. Again, the lock and unlock symbol will line up here. And on that side, there's also a symbol that matches those. You hear it lock into place. At that point, it's at the most coarse setting. You can bring it beyond there to a more fine setting. Here we can return power. Now keep in mind, we haven't returned this yet. So right now, we're just gonna kind of move it along. Give it power, give it grind. So some chunks are coming out now, but not much. Okay, we'll turn the grinder back off. We'll power the machine back off completely, so now there's no power. Give it one more brush. This stage will now return the head of the conical burr. This is the top half, top burr. We rotate it into place clockwise. Now we can return this once more. And the final step here will just be to actually just grind on a fine setting to get any last parts out. And we're going to observe to see how much comes out of there. Then we're going to use our little basket again. I'm going to sit that under there. Bring it to a fine setting. Give it some push. Into a more medium setting. And I'm observing, I'm looking underneath to see how much comes out. And it was still coming out as I was running out of time there. But I've already pulled this much out. This was just clean. So I'll dump that and I'll do it one more. big chunks coming out. And the reason I changed the coarseness is so that those burrs can actually rub closer and further apart to make sure I clean different sections of the burrs, different groups of teeth. And again, I'm just using the bellow to push air through. It's really slowed down the rate at which it's putting out any grinds, but I still pulled this much out. Okay, so these are old grinds. They probably are stale. They might have been from weeks ago, you know? So we'll get rid of those. All right, at this point, we've pretty much cleaned everything out. There is one final, more deep cleaning step to do. It's something that you may not do as often, but it's still very recommended. So let's move on to that. So what we'll do now is we'll turn off the power. We've removed the plug. There's no power in the machine. We're gonna remove the hopper once more. And would you have a look at that? It's very clean deep inside here. We won't see big caked in clumps anymore. We'll take that out. So most of those grinds are now gone, but some will be caked in. And at this point, we're going to use our fine pipe cleaner. We're just going to kind of dance in between those groups there. And we're going to do the same thing that we did to the top here. We're going to do this basically, but to the bottom burr. I'm just going to make sure we give attention in between each set of teeth here, as well as just rubbing underneath and the walls on the sides. And then finally, there's one last step. Inside here, the hole that in which these grinds will fall through, the chute, goes in this direction. So looking straight down towards the front right side of the machine, that hole or that tunnel, that chute, that outlet will pass in this direction. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this pipe cleaner and we're going to give a little bend and we're going to look for that hole. And it may take some time to find it. But once you do, you'll feel the pipe cleaner squeeze its way through. And it may take some time. It's easier, I find, to look from the back of the machine, but here it is, so it's going this direction. And we're just going to keep wiggling it, and eventually you'll find its way deeper in. And we're just sweeping the chimney at this point. And it may be easier if you find a different direction to bend this. I'm going to bend it in a downward direction. And you can use like a phone camera to look underneath, where you can reach up carefully and feel for this, or look underneath the machine. And you just want to see that this pipe cleaner is actually getting all the way through. But be patient. But you can see it's still cleaning a lot out of the machine. And this is arguably the most important part to clean, because this is where things are able to cake a lot, because there's nothing to push them, there's nothing to rub them out. The burrs, they rub themselves, you know, they kind of clean themselves, but here it needs that extra attention. Give everything a nice little sweep, and we should be done now. Give a final sweep for the top burr. And again, depending on how oily your beans often are, how often you grind coffee, these things can really determine if you need to do this maybe every few weeks, every few months. But we recommend a good starting point is at least every couple months, you know, at least take a look inside, see if it's getting caked up. Be observant of how fast your grinds are coming through. If you notice a slowdown, then it may be time to clean it up. And at the last step, we can just turn it on, give it another grind, just see how it looks. So that's without even grinding. It's quite dirty in there still. So these are all grinds that are very stale. They feel extremely dry compared to your average coffee grounds. Here's some old stale grinds that are just gonna soil the flavor of your perfect espresso, you know. So this is why we do it. Look at all that was inside. There you have it.